the arena's new attraction. The massive viewing screens around Nexus 7's premier fighting arena displayed the same message in 12 different languages. New Deathworlder specimen tonight only. Arena Master HFY watched the ticket sales climb with satisfaction. His 4 eyes tracked the numbers while his scaled hands worked the control panel. Business had been slow lately, but nothing drew crowds like exotic violence. "Sir, the human female is ready for inspection," announced his assistant, a nervous Quiranian whose tentacles quivered when he spoke. The creature always seemed afraid, which HFY found useful. Fear made employees work harder. HFY slithered down the corridor to the holding cells beneath the arena floor. The facility sprawled for kilometers underground, housing everything from mindless beasts to captured soldiers. Each cell was designed for specific species, some filled with toxic gases, others flooded with ammonia. The human cell was disappointingly simple, just air, water, and basic nutrition. The girl sat in the corner, knees drawn up to her chest. She looked smaller than the reports had indicated. Her dark hair hung loose around her shoulders, and her skin showed no obvious armor plating or natural weapons. HFY had expected something more impressive from a Deathworlder. "This is what destroyed a patrol ship?" he asked his security chief. "A massive Krentak warrior whose species had conquered 6 systems through pure aggression. The ship's records showed significant damage before we recovered her pod," the Krentak rumbled. But the damage looked more like system failures than combat. HFY studied the human through the energy barrier. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, one of the most hostile environments known to produce sentient life. The stories said humans fought each other constantly, that their planet was covered in predators and natural disasters. Yet this one looked like she might break if handled roughly. "How old is she in human years?" he asked. "Approximately 17 standard cycles," the assistant replied, consulting his datapad. "Barely past their species maturity marker." "Perfect." HFY's tongue flicked out to taste the air. Young specimens fought harder, driven by survival instincts that experience hadn't yet dulled. The audience loves watching the young ones realize they're going to die. The girl's head turned toward them. Her eyes were brown, a common human trait according to the files. But something in her gaze made HFY take a step back. She wasn't looking at them like a trapped animal. She was studying them. "Has she spoken yet?" HFY asked. "Not a word since we removed her from the pod. Medical scans show she understands our language through her translator implant, but she hasn't responded to questioning." The human stood up slowly. She was taller than HFY had expected, nearly reaching the height of an average Krentak. Her movements were fluid, controlled. She approached the energy barrier and placed one hand against it, testing its strength. "Maya Chen," she said suddenly. Her voice was calm, steady. "That's my name." HFY laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "It doesn't matter what your name was, little Deathworlder. Here, you're just entertainment." Maya tilted her head slightly. "What do you want me to fight?" The question surprised him. Most new arrivals spent days screaming or begging before accepting their situation. Tonight you face a Catherian razor cat. Tomorrow, if you survive, something bigger. How big is the arena floor? 50 meters diameter, standard configuration. HFY found himself answering before wondering why she was asking. "Why?" Maya nodded and stepped back from the barrier. "Just planning." "Planning?" The security chief laughed, a sound like rocks tumbling down a cliff. "Little human, you plan to survive 5 minutes against a creature bred for killing." Maya sat back down in her corner, but her eyes never left them. "I plan to win." The confidence in her voice sent an unexpected chill through HFY. He'd heard thousands of fighters make similar claims. But something about this human was different. She wasn't boasting or trying to convince herself. She was stating a fact. "Increase arena security for tonight's event," he told his security chief quietly, "and make sure our medical team is ready. I want this one to last more than one fight." Hours later, the arena filled with representatives from across the local systems. Corporate executives from the Zentari Mining Consortium occupied the premium boxes. Military officials from 3 different stellar navies watched from the officers' section. Even nobility from the core worlds had arrived to witness the spectacle. The betting pools reached record numbers. Most wagers placed small amounts on the human lasting more than 10 minutes. A few bold gamblers bet on her surviving the entire fight. Only one bettor, an anonymous account from the Outer Rim, placed a significant sum on the human winning. In the preparation chambers, Maya was fitted with basic arena gear, a simple cloth tunic and reinforced boots. No weapons, no armor. Arena policy required all fighters to rely on their natural abilities. The gear was designed more for the audience's comfort than the fighter's protection. "Last chance to beg," taunted the guard, another Krentak with scars covering his arms. "Cry a little, show some fear. The crowd loves it when they break before the fighting even starts." Maya tested the fit of her boots, flexing her feet and checking her range of motion. "Are there any rules?" "Stay alive as long as possible. Try to make it interesting." The guard's laugh was cruel. Though with what you're facing, interesting might just mean dying in a creative way. The arena floor rose on a mechanical platform, carrying Maya up into the blazing lights. The crowd's roar was deafening. Thousands of voices calling for blood in dozens of languages. The arena was exactly as HFY had described. A circular floor 50 meters across, surrounded by a 30-meter high-energy barrier that contained the violence below. Maya walked to the center and looked up at the viewing boxes. She could see HFY in the arena master's booth, his 4 eyes fixed on her. She raised one hand in what might have been a greeting or a salute. At the far end of the arena, another platform began to rise. The Cytherian razor cat emerged with a sound like metal scraping stone. It was magnificent and terrible, 3 meters long, covered in natural armor plates that gleamed like black mirrors. Its claws extended and retracted as it tested the arena floor, leaving deep gouges in the reinforced surface. When it opened its mouth, rows of diamond-hard teeth caught the arena lights. The crowd fell silent. Even seasoned arena-goers felt a primal fear when facing such a perfect predator. Maya stood perfectly still, watching the creature orient itself to its new environment. She counted its breathing rate, noted how it distributed its weight, observed which way its head turned when sounds echoed from different parts of the arena. The razor cat noticed her and dropped into a hunting crouch. Its pupils dilated as predatory instincts took over. Every muscle in its body coiled like a spring. Maya smiled. It was not the smile of someone facing death. It was not the desperate grin of someone trying to hide their fear. It was the smile of someone who had just figured out how to solve an interesting problem. The razor cat leaped. What happened next would be replayed on arena recordings for years to come, analyzed by military strategists and studied by xenobiologists. It would become the moment when the galaxy began to remember why human space was marked with warnings instead of welcome signs. Maya didn't dodge the attack. She didn't run or try to hide. Instead, she moved toward the leaping predator with precision that spoke to something far more dangerous than mere survival instinct. The crowd held its breath as Maya Chen began to show them what a Deathworlder really was. First Blood Maya moved into the razor cat's leap with timing that defied logic. While the creature's claws reached for where she had been standing, she slipped sideways and caught its front leg just behind the joint. The physics were simple. Redirect momentum, use the attacker's force against them, turn a predator's strength into its weakness. The razor cat hit the arena wall with a sound like a starship hull cracking. The impact was so violent that cracks appeared in the supposedly unbreakable reinforced surface. The creature slumped to the ground, dazed but not dead. The arena fell silent. 12,000 beings from across the galaxy stared in disbelief. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable. Maya walked over to the stunned predator. She knelt beside it and placed one hand on its neck, feeling for the pulse point she had identified during her observation. The razor cat's heart was beating rapidly but steadily. Good. It was hurt but would recover. She stood and looked up at Arena Master HFY. "What's next?" The question broke the spell. The crowd erupted into confused noise. Some cheered, others argued, many simply stared. In the premium boxes, conversations stopped mid-sentence as corporate executives tried to process what they had witnessed. HFY pressed the communication button with trembling hands. Release the stalker pack. 3 platforms rose around the arena's edge. From each emerged a different predator, a Nexian sandwolf, a Tyrellian spike beast, and something from the outer rim that had no official name, but was known for its ability to track prey across light years. Maya watched them emerge with the same calm attention she had given the razor cat. She noted how each creature moved, how they communicated with each other, how they planned to coordinate their attack. Pack hunters were more dangerous than lone predators, but they were also more predictable. Packs had patterns. The sandwolf circled to her left, its 6 legs carrying it in a wide arc. The spike beast moved right, its chitinous armor clicking with each step. The unnamed creature from the outer rim simply stood still, testing the air with organs that existed in spectrums beyond normal vision. Maya positioned herself so that her back was to the arena wall. Not because she was afraid, but because it gave her options. The wall was solid, predictable. Everything else in the arena was a variable she could control. The sandwolf attacked first, leaping with jaws wide enough to crush a shuttlecraft. Maya dropped low and rolled, coming up inside its trajectory. Her elbow found the precise spot behind its front shoulder, where the nerve cluster controlled motor function. The wolf hit the ground and skidded past her, paralyzed but unharmed. The spike beast charged while she was still moving. Its horn-like protrusions were aimed at center mass, designed to impale and pin prey. Maya grabbed the nearest spike and used it as a lever, redirecting the creature's charge into a spinning throw that sent it crashing into the unnamed predator. Both creatures went down in a tangle of limbs and confused snarling. Maya dusted off her hands and looked up at the viewing boxes again. What's next? In the arena master's booth, HFY's assistant was frantically checking readings. Sir, her heart rate never exceeded normal parameters. Breathing remained steady throughout. According to these sensors, she wasn't even stressed. HFY stared at the human girl standing calmly among unconscious predators. This wasn't how arena fights worked. Fighters were supposed to be desperate, panicked, driven by fear and adrenaline. They weren't supposed to look like they were solving mathematical equations. Release everything, he whispered. Sir? Release everything, HFY roared. Every creature in the holding pens. All of them. The assistant's tentacles went pale. Sir, that's 12 different species. Some of them will attack each other. The insurance cost alone. Do it. The arena floor erupted into chaos as a dozen platforms rose simultaneously. Creatures that had never seen each other before found themselves sharing the same space with natural enemies. A plasma bear from the volcanic worlds of Kepler 9 roared at an ice serpent from the frozen moons of Thaxis. Acid spitters from the chemical swamps of Venom Prime hissed warnings at crystal-backed tunnel crawlers from the mineral planets of the Taurus Reach. Maya stood in the center of it all, watching. Not afraid, not angry, just watching. She was calculating distances, noting behavioral patterns, identifying which creatures would fight each other and which would focus on her. The crowd was screaming now. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was madness. Corporate executives were demanding refunds. Military officials were taking notes. The nobility were divided between horror and fascination. Maya began to move. What followed wasn't a fight in any traditional sense. It was a demonstration. Maya didn't battle the creatures so much as manage them. She used their natural instincts against each other, turning the arena into a carefully orchestrated dance of controlled violence. When the plasma bear charged her, she stepped aside at the last second, allowing it to crash into the spike beast that had been approaching from behind. When the ice serpent tried to wrap around her legs, she guided it into the path of the acid spitters, causing a territorial dispute that kept both species busy. She moved through the chaos like she belonged there. Every step was deliberate, every motion served a purpose. She didn't hurt the creatures unnecessarily, but she controlled them absolutely, one by one. The predators either knocked each other unconscious or simply gave up trying to catch something that seemed to understand them better than they understood themselves. Within 20 minutes, Maya stood alone on the arena floor, surrounded by confused but largely unharmed creatures. The arena had fallen silent again. This time the silence felt different. It wasn't the silence of surprise or confusion. It was the silence of fear. Maya looked up at the viewing boxes one more time. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly through the arena's acoustic systems. I'm done playing. The words sent a chill through every being present. This had been playing? The systematic dismantling of a dozen apex predators from across the galaxy had been casual entertainment for her. In his booth, HFY realized he was looking at something far more dangerous than he had understood. The human hadn't been fighting for her life. She had been studying, learning, testing the limits of what she was dealing with. Arena security began moving toward the lower levels. Something in Maya's tone suggested that the evening's entertainment was about to become something else entirely. But as they reached for their weapons, they found themselves hesitating. Not because they were afraid of one small human, but because they were beginning to remember stories their grandparents had told them. Old stories about the species that had turned a Class 12 Deathworld into their home. Stories about why human space was left alone, why the peace treaties had been signed, why certain sectors of the galaxy were marked with warnings instead of welcome signs. Maya Chen smiled again, and this time, the smile was different. This time it was the smile of someone who had finished gathering information and was ready to begin the real work. Standing among the unconscious predators, she began to stretch. Not like someone preparing for battle, but like someone preparing for a job that required precision and focus. The crowd watched in growing horror as they realized that everything they had witnessed so far had just been warm-up. Exercises. Maya looked directly at Arena Master, Vex high through the transparisteel of his booth and mouthed two words that no translation system was needed to understand. My turn. The underground network. Maya sat in her cell after the arena fight, but she wasn't resting. Her eyes tracked the movement of guards in the corridor outside. She counted their patrol intervals, noted their shift changes, memorized their individual walking patterns. Each guard moved differently. The Krentak security chief favored his left leg slightly, probably an old injury. The Quiranian assistant took exactly 47 steps between her cell and the next checkpoint. The maintenance staff always checked the same 3 wall panels when they passed through. Information was currency here, and Maya was collecting it with systematic precision. On the second day, she began testing the boundaries. When guards brought her meal, she asked simple questions. Not suspicious ones that might trigger security protocols, but basic inquiries that any confused prisoner might ask. How long has this arena been operating? She asked the Quiranian assistant. 42 standard years, he replied without thinking. The Galactic Entertainment Consortium built it as their flagship facility. 42 years. Maya nodded as if impressed. That's a lot of fighters. Do many survive their first matches? Most last 2 or 3 fights if they're lucky. The record holder survived for almost 6 months before. The assistant caught himself and hurried away. 6 months. Maya filed the information away. Someone had lasted 6 months, which meant long-term survival was possible. More importantly, the assistant's reaction suggested that record holder hadn't died in the arena. They had escaped, been rescued, or simply vanished. During her 3rd day, Maya began making contact. The first was a Thraxian engineer named Keld, who maintained the cell environmental systems. She caught his attention during his routine maintenance check by speaking a few words in technical Thraxian, the specialized dialect used by engineers across multiple systems. Keld's multifaceted eyes widened in surprise. How do you know tech speak? My colony ship had a mixed crew, Maya replied quietly. I learned a lot during our journey. It wasn't entirely true. Maya had learned technical Thraxian from educational downloads during her childhood, part of a comprehensive education program designed to prepare human children for life in a mixed-species galaxy. But Keld didn't need to know that. You understand propulsion systems? Keld asked, glancing around nervously. Enough to know that a facility this size needs massive power conduits, backup life support, and probably an independent fusion reactor. Maya kept her voice casual. The maintenance requirements must be enormous. Keld nodded slowly. 3 of us work the lower levels. 14-hour shifts, 7 days a cycle. The consortium doesn't believe in rest periods for technical staff. That sounds exhausting and dangerous, working alone on such complex systems. Not alone, Keld said quickly, then caught himself. I mean, the work is always supervised. But Maya had caught the slip. Not alone meant there were others. Others who might be tired of 14-hour shifts and dangerous working conditions. Over the following days, she built a picture of the facility's operation. During exercise periods, she observed other prisoners in adjacent exercise yards. She watched their movements, studied their body language, identified those who had given up hope and those who still fought back mentally even if their bodies were trapped. The pattern became clear. This wasn't just an arena. It was a research facility. The realization came when she noticed the medical staff taking detailed scans of every fighter, win or lose. Blood samples, neural activity readings, stress response measurements. The data was being collected and transmitted somewhere beyond the arena itself. Maya began paying closer attention to the fighting schedules. Certain types of matches seemed designed not for entertainment, but for data collection. Speed trials, endurance tests, problem-solving scenarios disguised as obstacle courses. The consortium wasn't just running gladiatorial games. They were studying the combat capabilities of different species. On her 7th day, she made contact with a group of Altarian miners in the cell block below hers. Altarians communicated partially through subsonic vibrations that traveled through solid surfaces. Maya had noticed the subtle tremors in her cell floor and recognized them as communication patterns. She responded by tapping against the wall in mathematical sequences. Prime numbers, then Fibonacci series, then simple equations. The response was immediate. A complex pattern of vibrations that, when decoded, spelled out a message in basic Altarian. "Who are you?" Maya tapped back. "Someone who wants to leave." The conversation that followed took place over several hours, conducted entirely through wall vibrations that the monitoring systems weren't designed to detect. The Altarians had been captured 6 months ago when their mining ship had been seized for tax violations, a common excuse used to acquire technical expertise and manual labor. There were 12 of them in the lower cells, all engineers and mineral specialists. They had been studying the facility's structure during their imprisonment, identifying weaknesses and potential escape routes. But they lacked the coordination and planning to act on their knowledge. Maya offered to provide both. Through Keld, she made contact with other maintenance staff. Through the Altarians, she reached prisoners in different cell blocks. Through careful observation and patient conversation, she began mapping the facility's real purpose. The Galactic Entertainment Consortium was collecting comprehensive data on the combat capabilities, technological knowledge, and psychological profiles of species from across known space. The arena fights were just the visible part of a massive intelligence-gathering operation. Every prisoner was being studied, their strengths and weaknesses cataloged, their breaking points identified, their species' military potential assessed. The data wasn't being collected for academic purposes. Military officials from multiple stellar navies attended fights regularly, often taking extensive notes. Corporate executives frequently met privately with arena staff to discuss special acquisitions. Specific individuals with particular skills or knowledge. Maya realized she was looking at the early stages of a systematic conquest. The consortium was identifying targets, assessing threats, and gathering intelligence that would be used to subjugate or eliminate potential rivals. But they had made one critical error in their planning. They had assumed that their prisoners were helpless, that capture meant defeat, that species taken from their home environments would be too disoriented and demoralized to pose any real threat. Maya began changing that assumption. She started small. A few words of encouragement to a defeated Nexian warrior, technical advice shared with struggling maintenance staff, information passed between prisoner groups who had never been able to communicate before. Slowly, carefully, she began building something that the consortium's planners had never anticipated. Hope. The Thraxian engineers learned that their expertise was valued beyond their labor. The Altarian miners discovered that their geological knowledge was crucial for understanding the facility's vulnerabilities. Prison guards began to realize that their working conditions were as oppressive as those of the fighters they watched. Maya didn't promise immediate escape or violent revolution. Instead, she offered something more dangerous, the possibility that they weren't as helpless as their captors believed. She taught the Altarians how to use their mining expertise to identify structural weaknesses. She showed the Thraxians how their maintenance access could be used for reconnaissance. She helped guards understand that their security clearances gave them access to information that could be used to protect rather than oppress. Most importantly, she began teaching them to see themselves not as prisoners, but as specialists who had been temporarily reassigned to a very important mission. The mission was simple: gather intelligence on the consortium's operations, identify their plans and capabilities, and prepare for the day when that information would be needed. Maya knew that day was coming soon. Her arena performances had attracted too much attention. The betting pools were reaching astronomical levels. Corporate and military officials were demanding private meetings with arena management. Soon, someone would decide that she was too valuable to risk in public fights. They would want to study her directly, to understand what made a human so effective in combat situations. When that happened, she would be ready. And so would her network. Lying in her cell on the 10th night, Maya listened to the vibrations from the Altarian miners below, the whispered conversations of the Thraxian engineers in the maintenance tunnels, and the coded signals from sympathetic guards throughout the facility. The consortium had wanted to study the combat capabilities of different species. They were about to get their wish, but the lesson they learned might not be the one they expected. When Deathworlders remember, the championship arena was different from the regular fighting floor. Larger, more elaborate, equipped with recording systems that could capture every detail in real time. The crowd was different too. Fewer casual entertainment seekers, more serious observers. Military analysts from 6 different stellar navies sat in the technical viewing section. Corporate executives filled an entire tier of premium seating. Even diplomats from the core worlds had arrived to witness what was being called the Deathworlder exhibition. Maya stood in the preparation chamber, no longer surprised by the routine. Basic arena gear, no weapons, no armor. But this time she wasn't alone. Arena Master HFY had come personally to observe her pre-fight preparations. Tonight, you face Champion Thirak of the Valdorian warrior caste, he said, his 4 eyes studying her carefully. He has never lost a fight. 63 victories, 12 years as champion. His species has conquered 4 systems through pure military might. Maya nodded politely. How tall is he? The question seemed to amuse HFY. 2.5 meters. Weighs approximately 300 kilograms. His skeleton is reinforced with metallic bone structure. His muscles contain redundant fiber systems that make him stronger when injured. Interesting design, Maya said, genuinely impressed. Natural or enhanced? Natural evolution from a heavy gravity world. The Valdorians are perfect warriors, strong, fast, intelligent, and absolutely ruthless. HFY leaned closer. Tell me, little human, what do you think will happen when you face such a creature? Maya finished adjusting her boots and stood up. I think your audience is about to learn something. Learn what? Maya smiled, that calm, measured smile that had become familiar to arena staff. They're about to learn the difference between a warrior and a soldier. The arena floor was packed beyond capacity. Every seat was filled, and viewing screens had been set up in adjoining chambers to accommodate the overflow crowd. The betting pools had reached levels that made consortium accountants nervous. Too much money on a single event created financial instabilities that could affect multiple star systems. Most of the money was on Champion Thirak. Professional military analysts had studied recordings of Maya's previous fights and concluded that her success came from facing inferior opponents. Arena beasts were dangerous but predictable. Champion Thirak was neither. When Maya emerged onto the arena floor, the crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered for their favorite curiosity. Others remained silent, studying her with professional interest. In the diplomatic section, representatives from human space watched with expressions that might have been concern or anticipation. Maya walked to the center of the arena and looked up at the viewing boxes. But this time she wasn't looking at HFY. She was looking at the recording systems, the data collection equipment, the military observers taking notes. She raised her hand in what looked like a casual wave. To most of the audience, it appeared to be a greeting. To the members of her network throughout the facility, it was a signal. Champion Thirak emerged from the opposite platform with a sound like a mountain moving. He was everything HFY had promised. Massive, armored, moving with the controlled grace of a perfect predator. His species had evolved for warfare, and every aspect of his physiology showed it. The crowd fell silent as he approached the center of the arena. When he spoke, his voice carried across the chamber without amplification. Human, I will make your death swift. You have provided entertainment, but this ends now. Maya looked up at him with the same calm attention she gave everything else. Thank you for the courtesy. I appreciate professional respect. Thirak seemed surprised by her response. Most opponents either begged for mercy or screamed challenges. Calm gratitude was unexpected. You are not afraid? Should I be? Maya asked genuinely. You're clearly an excellent warrior. Your species has an impressive military tradition. But I'm not here to prove I'm a better fighter than you. Then why are you here? Maya's smile changed. For the first time since her capture, it wasn't calm or measured. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. "I'm here to send a message." The fight began without ceremony. Thyrak moved with devastating efficiency, his enhanced physiology allowing him to cross the distance between them in less than a second. His first strike could have shattered a starship hull. Maya wasn't there when it landed, but she wasn't running or dodging randomly. She was moving with purpose, each step calculated to position her exactly where she needed to be for what came next. Thyrak adjusted quickly, as any good warrior would. He changed tactics, using his reach advantage and superior strength to control the space around him. His movements were textbook perfect, the result of centuries of martial tradition refined by actual combat experience. Maya countered with something that had never been seen in any arena. Applied military science. She wasn't fighting Thyrak as an individual opponent. She was fighting him as a representative of his species' military capabilities. Every move she made was designed not just to defeat him, but to demonstrate specific tactical principles. When he used his strength advantage, she showed how leverage could overcome raw power. When he relied on his armor, she demonstrated how precision could bypass protection. When he tried to use his experience, she revealed how adaptability could overcome rigid training. But more than that, she began to narrate. Valdorian combat doctrine emphasizes direct confrontation, she said clearly, her voice carrying through the arena's acoustic systems as she redirected another devastating strike. They prefer overwhelming force applied to the center of enemy resistance. The crowd was confused. This wasn't typical arena banter. This sounded like, "This makes them effective against opponents who fight the same way," Maya continued, demonstrating as she spoke, but vulnerable to asymmetric tactics. She wasn't just beating Champion Thyrak. She was providing a tactical analysis of his species' military doctrine, in real time, for an audience that included military officials from potential enemy nations. The realization hit the diplomatic section first. The human ambassador was speaking urgently into a communication device. Corporate executives were looking around nervously, suddenly understanding that this wasn't entertainment anymore. "Human combat doctrine is fundamentally different," Maya said, still moving, still demonstrating. "We don't fight to prove we're stronger. We fight to win." Thyrak was beginning to understand as well. This wasn't just a fight he was losing. This was an intelligence briefing disguised as combat. Every tactical mistake he made was being explained to potential enemies of his people. "Stop," he said, changing his approach completely. "This is not honorable combat." Maya paused. "You're absolutely right. This isn't honorable combat." She looked directly at the recording systems again, making sure her next words would be captured clearly. "This is a demonstration of why human space is marked with warnings instead of welcome signs. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for decades." Maya stopped holding back. Until that moment, she had been fighting carefully, methodically, teaching as she went. Now she began fighting like what she actually was. A human being who had grown up on a planet where everything was trying to kill her. Trained by a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of warfare against each other. Champion Thyrak lasted exactly 43 seconds. When it was over, he lay unconscious but alive on the arena floor. Maya stood over him, not even breathing hard. The arena was absolutely silent. Maya looked up at the viewing boxes one final time. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the facility. "The Galactic Entertainment Consortium has been collecting military intelligence on member species for systematic conquest. The data you've gathered will be used to identify targets and assess threats. This facility is not an arena. It's a weapons testing laboratory." The silence shattered as security alarms began blaring throughout the station, but Maya wasn't finished. "You wanted to study Deathworlders. You wanted to understand what makes humans dangerous. Here's your lesson. We're not dangerous because we're strong or fast or tough. We're dangerous because we turn everything into a weapon, including your own intelligence gathering." As security forces converged on the arena, Maya's network throughout the facility began to move. Maintenance staff who had memorized security protocols, engineers who had mapped every structural weakness, guards who had realized they were working for the wrong side. The uprising that followed wasn't random violence. It was a coordinated military operation planned and executed with precision that would have impressed professional soldiers. Maya Chen stood in the center of the arena, no longer a prisoner or an entertainment. but what she had always been. A human being who had just reminded the galaxy why her species was left alone. The message was being broadcast across every communication system on the station. By morning, it would reach every military command, every corporate headquarters, and every diplomatic mission in known space. The galaxy was about to remember something it had worked very hard to forget: why Deathworlders were called Deathworlders in the first place. The species that built Deathworlds. The first explosion came from the power distribution center in Section C. The second took out the main communication array. The third disabled the station's defensive systems. Each blast was precisely timed, perfectly placed, and absolutely devastating to the facility's ability to contain what was happening. Arena Master HFY watched his empire crumble from the emergency command center, his 4 eyes tracking multiple disaster reports simultaneously. Security forces were reporting coordinated attacks throughout the station. Maintenance tunnels were being used as tactical corridors. Even his own guards were turning against their commanders. "How?" he whispered. "How did one prisoner organize this?" His security chief, the massive Krentak warrior, was bleeding from wounds he couldn't explain. "Sir, it's not just one prisoner. It's all of them. Every captured individual on this station is moving with military precision." "That's impossible. They're from different species, different systems. They can't communicate effectively, let alone coordinate." "They've been communicating for days, sir. Maybe weeks. We monitored vocal communications, but we never thought to check for subsonic vibrations, electromagnetic patterns, or coded maintenance signals." HFY stared at the tactical display showing red indicators throughout his facility. "You're telling me they built a communication network using our own infrastructure?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you, sir. And they've been mapping our operations the entire time they've been here." Down in the arena, Maya stood calmly amid the chaos. Security forces had surrounded the fighting floor, but they seemed reluctant to advance. Something in her posture and the way she moved had triggered instincts that evolution had spent millions of years teaching them to respect. She wasn't acting like prey anymore. She was acting like an apex predator that had been playing with its food. "Station security, this is Commander Theiss of the Nexus Defense Fleet," announced a voice over the communication system. "We have ships moving to intercept this station. Surrender immediately." Maya smiled and activated the arena's public address system. "Commander Theiss, this is Maya Chen, citizen of the Terran Colonial Authority. I respectfully decline your terms. You are one individual aboard a heavily defended military station. You cannot possibly. Commander, may I ask what class of vessel you're commanding?" There was a pause. "Heavy cruiser Vindication, Stellar Navy classification." "Impressive ship," Maya said conversationally. "Crew complement of 800 dual fusion reactors. Enough firepower to level a small moon. You must be very proud. Surrender now or we will demonstrate that firepower." Maya's smile became something that made the arena security forces take another step backward. "Commander, before you do that, you might want to check your long-range sensors. About 3 light minutes out, bearing 27 Mark IV. Another pause, longer this time. When Commander Theiss spoke again, his voice had changed. That's impossible. What do you see, Commander?" "A Terran dreadnought. But Earth doesn't have ships in this sector. The peace treaties specifically." "The peace treaties," Maya interrupted gently, "specify that human military vessels will not enter inhabited systems without invitation. This system was classified as uninhabited when those treaties were signed." The arena had gone completely silent. Even the security forces had stopped moving. Everyone was listening to a conversation that was rapidly becoming something much larger than a prisoner uprising. But that classification was changed 6 months ago when Nexus 7 was established. Commander Theiss protested. "Was it? Officially? With proper notification to all signatory governments, including Earth?" The silence stretched long enough to become uncomfortable. "I see," Maya said finally. "So from Earth's perspective, this is still an uninhabited system, which means the dreadnought Retribution is operating well within treaty parameters when it responds to a distress signal from a human citizen." HFY felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Distress signal? When did she send a distress signal?" His security chief checked his instruments frantically. "Sir, there's been a continuous subspace transmission broadcasting from this facility for the past week. Low power, buried in normal communication traffic, We never detected it because it was using our own transmission arrays. Broadcasting what? Tactical data, sir. Station defenses, troop positions, weapons capabilities, everything. The tactical display updated with new information. The Terran dreadnought wasn't alone. 3 more ships had appeared on the sensors, all broadcasting human identification codes. Maya Chen. Commander Theis's voice had taken on a distinctly different tone. Perhaps we can discuss terms. Of course, Commander. I'm always willing to discuss terms. Maya's voice remained perfectly pleasant. But I should mention that there are approximately 200 captured individuals aboard this station. Citizens from 12 different systems, held against their will for illegal experimentation. Some of them are undoubtedly citizens of worlds that have mutual defense agreements with your government. Another long pause. Commander, Maya continued, would you like to know what we discovered during our investigation of this facility? Investigation? Did you think we were just fighting for entertainment? We've been gathering intelligence on the Galactic Entertainment Consortium's operations for weeks. It's fascinating reading. Maya gestured, and one of the maintenance staff activated the arena's display systems. Data began scrolling across every screen in the facility. Financial records, communication logs, prisoner transport manifests, and military intelligence reports. The consortium has been systematically capturing representatives from every major species and government in this sector. Maya explained. They've been studying our combat capabilities, our psychological profiles, our technological knowledge. All of it cataloged and sold to the highest bidder. The data continued flowing across the screens, transport schedules showing regular shipments of prisoners, purchase orders for specific individuals with particular skills, research reports analyzing the military potential of different species. But the most interesting discovery, Maya said, her voice taking on an edge that made even the recording system seem to flinch, is what they plan to do with all this information. A new set of files appeared on the screens. Strategic planning documents, invasion timetables, target assessment reports. Systematic conquest, Maya said simply. Study every species, identify their weaknesses, then eliminate them one by one. Very efficient, very thorough. The arena floor was now completely surrounded by security forces, but none of them were moving. They were all staring at the screens, reading documents that detailed plans for the subjugation of their homeworlds. Of course, Maya continued, there was one species they were particularly interested in studying. Humans. Deathworlders from a Class 12 hostile environment. The consortium was very curious about what made us so effective in combat situations. She turned slowly, making eye contact with security forces from a dozen different species. They wanted to understand why a species from such a hostile planet could be so dangerous. They assumed it was because our environment made us tough or fast or aggressive. Maya began walking toward the security perimeter. The armed soldiers, professional military personnel from multiple stellar navies, began backing away instinctively. But they got it backward, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the arena's acoustic systems. We're not dangerous because we survived a hostile planet. We're dangerous because we made our planet hostile in the first place. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Earth isn't a death world because of natural disasters or predatory animals, Maya explained. Earth is a death world because humans spent 100,000 years competing with each other. Every challenge our planet threw at us, we mastered. Every predator that hunted us, we hunted back. Every environmental disaster that should have destroyed us, we turned into an advantage. She stopped walking and looked directly at the recording systems again. We didn't adapt to a hostile environment. We created one, and then we thrived in it. The security forces had backed all the way to the arena walls. Professional soldiers, trained killers, elite warriors from across the galaxy, all instinctively avoiding one 17-year-old human girl who was explaining why their ancestors had been wise to leave Earth alone. The consortium wanted to study Deathworlders, Maya said. They got their wish, but the lesson they learned wasn't the one they expected. She raised her hand again and the explosion stopped. The alarms went silent. The uprising throughout the station paused as if waiting for orders. The lesson is this. We're not Deathworlders because we come from a dangerous place. We're Deathworlders because we are the dangerous place. The communication system crackled to life again. Maya Chen, this is Captain Rodriguez of the Terran Dreadnought Retribution. We're standing by to provide assistance, Maya smiled. And for the first time since her capture, It was the smile of someone who was genuinely happy. Captain Rodriguez, this is Maya Chen. I'm ready to come home. Understood. And Maya? Yes, Captain? Outstanding work. Your father would be proud. The arena erupted into chaos as every being present suddenly understood what they had been watching. Not a prisoner uprising. Not a gladiatorial exhibition. Not even a military demonstration.